Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller, and I'm here today with Kent Lewis from Anvil. And Kent has such a great story, and I really wanted to bring him on and started to just hear about it and then gain some insights into what Kent's seeing in the marketplace, his journey, and then some of the trends he's seeing. So, Kent, welcome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. I love your podcast and look forward to sharing my journey.
Awesome. So, Ken, let's start off with just talking about you, right? Tell me a little bit about yourself, your journey. I know you and I caught up before, but I think for all of our listeners, we like to kind of hear that straight from you.
Sure. Yeah. So I started my marketing career in '94 at an ad agency, full service agency in the PR side. And less than 2 years later, I left PR to go into digital. We weren't even sure what it was called back then, kind of web marketing, online PR, that sort of thing. And so I started building a discipline around optimizing websites back in '96. I started building teams in '97. Through '98, and then, right. It really, I couldn't explain to my parents what I did for a living. Forget what my grandparents understood about it. Even my parents didn't get what I did. It was hard enough to explain PR. I talked to the media and I begged them to talk about my clients. Like, even that's not an easy concept. But then now I optimize for these search engines like Excite and WebCrawler and these other Lycos and other sites most young kids don't know about. And so, right. So back then I was optimizing my clients' websites for 14 search engines, none of which were Google because Google was still 2 years away. And so that's how I started my career. And then I started building, I mentioned I started building teams, but more importantly, I did my first startup agency in '99. And by fall of 2000, we had grown to maybe 35 employees, but I had a falling out with the owner, the founder who had all the money. I just had a small percent of the business, and he ended up firing myself and the other young talent that helped grow this $3.5 million agency for him in less than 2 years. And that's when I started Anvil. And I realized I'll just take a shingle. Long story short, 10 agencies later, I have been a part of full service agencies, digital only agencies. I've co-founded and founded 2 agencies. I've exited all 4. But for literally technically speaking, not from a financial windfall standpoint at all. But I did run Anvil for 22 years, sold it in March of 22. And that was one pivot point for me. Was I was pretty good at running an agency based on all the conversations I had with potential buyers looking at my financials, and they were impressed. And I was like, cool. But daddy pays himself out of profit, not out of ego, and have high fives. So I built a profitable agency. And after the acquisition, the first shift was I became an employee for the first time in 22 years, and it blew my mind. I realized what I had done right, but mostly what I had done wrong with the right intent, meaning I did care about my employees, and I, generally speaking, statistically overpaid them and took care of them. And my concern, it didn't matter that there's to this day no thank yous, and I appreciate everything you did for me. It's not even waiting for those. It's what could I have done better, and what can I tell my friends that are entrepreneurs and business owners to do better? So I became obsessed with employee engagement and retention. The last year and a half. But I never stopped doing digital because that's what I know. My head is in digital marketing after 28 years. So I still have some consulting clients, but my heart is working with entrepreneurs in this employee retention engagement. But also this last year, as I was reflecting with some of my other friends who are business owners, like, how would you encapsulate the year? And for me, it was a year of validating my thought leadership could be beneficial to me and enjoyable to me, and it can be monetized. It was a year of validation of my leadership over the last 30 years by taking on a bunch of mostly unpaid board roles and other advisory roles that give me the most energy and fullness. And then, a pretty good problem solver. I had to fix some major issues this year, and which will lead hopefully to a much better 2025.
Well, it's an amazing story, Ken, and the fact that you 10 plus digital agencies, right? Anyone that wants to understand how to navigate the agency space should be talking to you. But I wanted to dive into a couple of areas that you just said, right? So the first was, what insights did you get by being on the other side? You're an entrepreneur
Yes.
by nature, right? You were in an employee role for what, 6 8 months, a year, or something like that.
14 months after
14
22
months.
years of
Yeah.
working for myself.
Yeah.
So the
So
first,
what
there's a
was the
few things.
insights to flipping that around? Yeah.
The first thing I realized was that I did care for my employees at Anvil, and I may not have shown that in all the right ways, but I still did pretty good. My new employer that had acquired my agency was good at a few things, really good at a few things, but also fell short in some critical areas. And I'll start with the most important, and that is one thing I did right at Anvil, even though it was regularly not implemented properly, was an individual development plan, an IDP for short. I would call that an employee roadmap. What is your
Like
journey?
a career path, are you thinking?
A career
Yeah.
path through the company. And my goal when I started Anvil was everybody should have the chance to retire here. And, there's a company I use in my employee retention engagement, Les Schwab Tires out of the Pacific Northwest, peaked at, I think, over 500 locations selling tires and doing brake repair and whatever. But this guy, Les Schwab, made more millionaires probably than any non-equity, non-stock, tech stock related company. Basically, he shared 50% of all profits from the organization, Les Schwab Tires, with the store, with all employees on a store by store basis. So the store GMs, all of them retired millionaires. And that,
Wow.
and in the tire business, that is unheard of. And people would ask,
Yeah, their margins are thin, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they're decent, but not
Decent,
super
yeah.
fat. It's not software fat. And so somebody asked him years ago, why do you pay these kids so much? A lot of them are younger. He's like, why wouldn't I? They've helped build my success. Why would I short them? So he was unusual in the sea of entrepreneur business owners, as he gave back because he knew he got back. And that stuck with me. I read and watch a lot of Simon Sinek, Adam Grant, Scott Galloway, and they're highly, even some Malcolm Gladwell. It inspires me that the leaders, and I don't fully believe in servant leadership so much as where the employees come before the company's longevity. If the company isn't profitable, it can't stay in business. Then you're not serving anybody. And I know this firsthand because I just wound down after 18 years, one of the trade organizations I co-founded in 2006 called SEM PDX, which was basically short for Search Engine Marketers of Portland. And they were the board some had been there 18 years on the board every day. I was the first president and co-founder, and I got it up and running in 3 years. Then I handed it over for 15 years. I was like on an advisory board. Then I came back in July, but I could not save it. Basically, the board's obsession with member first came at the expense of the organization folding. I had to dig it out of a massive financial hole just to make all of our vendors complete, pay them off.
Right.
And so now what I'm doing is merging SEM PDX. This is, I don't know when this comes out, but basically in 2 days from now, we're going to announce this organization called Think Northwest, which has a 130-year history as Portland Advertising Federation. So the creative community was rebranded 4 years ago as Think Northwest, is rebranding again as Next Northwest, and SEM PDX is going to be folded into that through acquisition. So I'm going to run that whole thing, and we're going to go from Greater Portland to 5 states and 2 provinces, representing the digital and marketing community, the creative services community. I'm very excited about it, but my point is that servant leadership is great to a point, and that leaders should be helping all the boats float with the tide. That everybody wins when you lead from the front and from the back. And there's some great. I was listening to a couple of Simon Sinek presentations about his stories when he actually went to Afghanistan with the Mobility Air Force, the mobility unit that handles all the large planes that don't kill people without bullets. All the
Right.
C-5As and all that. And he saw that what leadership looked like, and he added it into his mantra. And so I've always led from the front. By that I mean I wouldn't ask my team to do something I wouldn't be willing to do or I couldn't do
Right.
myself. Same thing when everything was good, I shared in the profits. When things were bad, I took the pay cut, and so my team didn't have to. And so I could have done it a lot of ways, given everybody a little pay cut, so I didn't have to take a pay cut. But to
Right.
me, it's
Right.
like so many good years, I'm going to have to eat an occasional bad year or bad quarter. So that was my lesson was employee engagement is all about, it starts with the long haul. Do we agree on these modern youngsters, millennials and Gen Y, Gen Z, they need
Right.
sense of purpose. They need a sense of belonging. They need a sense of understanding impact. I think a roadmap of saying you're here today, you build it together with leadership is based on your core values and your mission vision. You want to be here, and here is how we work together to get to this common goal. And I didn't
Right.
have that. Once I had that for myself for 22 years, when I left and became an employee, when we shut that down, I had no roadmap. I didn't necessarily fully align and understand and agree with the core values and the vision. And I pushed back where other employees wouldn't, and got to a place where I could say, I can live with this, but I'm not passionate about it. And that really
Right.
hurt. I felt underappreciated, underrespected. I felt a little lost. I wasn't going to give them my best work because I wasn't sure why I was doing what I was doing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so that having every employee at every company should have a career roadmap for that organization. And if there's a really smart run organization, you could retire there. I was offering equity to anybody that lasts 5 years. You start to vest in, and
Yeah.
but until you're there for a couple of years, I wasn't going to waste my time with a vesting schedule of people that weren't all in.
All in. Right.
Right. So that roadmap's the first thing. There are other things, but that's the one that stands out to me.
That's fantastic. I think a lot of people, a lot of other founders would, get a lot of insight from that. The other thing that you mentioned is that you've been on a lot of boards, a bunch voluntarily,
Yeah.
and a lot of the folks that we've been interviewing, one of their aspirations is to get onto more boards. What's been your experience there?
Mm-hmm.
And because you said that it really energizes you, but I'd love to hear kind of what your experience has been.
Yeah, so there's a couple. I would share my experience as a recommendation, experience share to follow, and that is I started my board career path where people would ask me to be on a board, and it started with trade organizations. So this Portland Advertising Federation, which started around 1900 or so, something
Oh,
like
wow.
that in Portland, it became one of the oldest around, and then they rebranded it. Which I don't necessarily fully agree with. I loved what it was, but it's broader than just advertising now, so that's fine. But I was on that board for a couple of years. Then that begat opportunities to be on other. Then I co-founded SCM PDX, and that was my industry-focused board for a while. Then I started joining industry boards like the Travel and Tourism Board, where I had travel and tourism clients. I might as well get to know that industry. And then I parlayed that into my commitment to giving back through nonprofits that quickly led to a board position that was almost a decade with SMART, which is a literacy program in Oregon that has been adopted in other states. But it's not teaching kids how to read; it's how to teach them a love of reading. So you don't have to be a professional, reading coach. You just have to sit and share books and get them excited about reading, which is something that I struggled with as a kid as well. I was a late reader. So I've been passionate about that for 25 years. But the first thing I did is I became a volunteer. Then I thought about back in '04, I had this creative outlet, this e-zine called Anvil, which was the predecessor in 1996 to my agency in 2000. I had all these friends creating great assets. So I thought I'm going to give back and do an event where they can perform their written word, spoken word, and other creative outlets. And I'm going to tie to a charity. So I thought, SMART, that's my charity. So with the help of my family, we launched this SMART Gala, and that led to a board position. And they're like, clearly you're good at raising money. I'm like, actually, I'm not. Events aren't my bag. But I spent, I think 8 years or more, 8 to 10 years on that board. And so those all parlayed into advisory board roles, with client level, where over time having run my own agency for so long, is clients would say, hey, would you join my board? And sometimes I'd say yes, sometimes no, usually yes. And,
Mhm.
those were like quarterly commitments. But I have
Right.
been on a board for over a decade that's a commercial furniture. Think of Herman Miller Furniture. It's the local rep. And I've been on
Yeah.
their advisory board for over a decade. And that's the actual paid role. The other thing is you can create your own as a business owner. I'm part of EO Entrepreneur Organization. I have this
Right.
agency roundtable that I also lead now. That's agency owners in Portland. We just get together every other month or so. But I created my own advisory board because I wanted people that knew my business, not just agency and not just entrepreneurship. And I had
Right.
one for 7 years, and I paid my advisory board on a per meeting basis so that they would be vested. And it wasn't a stipend, right? It wasn't a huge payment, but I found it invaluable, especially the first couple of years. So it's a new multi-directional. As a business owner, you can join client boards, industry boards, charity boards. I highly recommend starting with nonprofit, charity, giving back, and then maybe an industry board, and then there might be some other area of interest. But you could create your own advisory board, pay by the meeting, and get people's expertise strategically that you don't have. So I stacked my board with people that were really great at business development and operations. Those were not my favorite, or where I wasn't particularly competent in those areas. And it was really helpful to get outside opinions and not just have it be my employees saying yes to the boss for fear of being fired, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fantastic. And I know a lot of our listeners definitely are seeking or th- as depending on where they are in their career, are thinking about how do I sit on more boards, right? And share their expertise, right? Just like you were talking
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
about. Yeah. The next thing I want to kind of pivot into, if you don't mind, is you've been in the digital space as long as anybody that we've interviewed. So uh, the the trends that you're seeing, the changes, what are you seeing on the horizon that other founders and CEOs should be aware of? Like what as you look out onto the horizon, what do kind of what are you seeing in the industry in general?
Yeah, so I see a few things. And again, I'll start with my passion. It's the employee retention and engagement. The first thing is it's a lot cheaper and more profitable to reduce turnover and to maximize productivity of your existing team. So, you can read a lot of my Culture of Caring. I have webinars and articles, and you can check that out at kentjlewis.com, my speaker website. So I've got articles and webinars and so forth. Including that's where I put any coverage like podcasts like this. I'll link to those. So that's a great resource for how do you retain and grow your current employees. But there's a new trend, right? So a lot of my agency friends, as well as other business owners, have sort of flipped upside down the model of bigger is better. And the
Yeah.
ego/revenue is measured by headcount, and that has obviously changed dramatically since COVID. And the new normal is new hires are typically nearshore, offshore, outsourced, freelance contractor, 1099s, you name it. And then combined with AI, right? So
Right.
what's happening is my friends that have had between 50 and 100 employees now have between 10 and 50 employees. And
Right.
any new hires tend to be remote or hybrid. Any company that's demanding back to work 5 days a week is usually intentionally or unintentionally trying to reduce their workforce. Usually intentionally, the
Right.
Amazons and maybe even in our backyard, Nike here in Oregon, the 5 day a week mandate for certain roles where you clearly had shown you can do it remotely is not gonna fly for a lot of people. It's considered about an 8% pay cut, and according to the research I've recently read, when you're being asked to go back 5 days a week when you're already hybrid or remote,
Because of the
you know,
commute and all that, and the
yeah,
cut. Right.
all of that is a pay cut, mainly a control, flexibility, and lifestyle,
Yeah.
but all things in. So that's a big thing. So that I think that's the most important, even though it's not the most talked about shift in business is and including marketing is how you manage your workforce and managing a more lean, and then you add on people on a contract basis instead of FTE headcount. The next is more related to the bridge between business and marketing is a heavier reliance on AI for better for worse. There's a lot for
Yep.
better, some for worse, depending on how you do it, right? So
Yeah.
that is
Agreed.
a major change. Obviously research, automation of processes. I get worried when it's heavily reliant on content. If that's why you're using it, it should be more on ideation and research and refinement, editing, rather than, you want to still create original content, but AI can streamline every part of the marketing process for sure. More personalization. AI obviously can help with that significantly. That's where I'm seeing CMOs are spending a lot, is just figure out how to integrate AI and how to do it well, and then how to use it for personalization. Not just automation of processes. So I think that's a big trend. And then one that nobody's talking about that may not come to fruition, I thought it might a little this year, is I think that we're going to get back to more augmented reality and maybe a touch more VR. Obviously, VR was vaporized the last 2 years.
It really was.
Bitcoin, NFTs for last 4 years, 3 years vaporized. So I think some of those things are going to come back. The value of an NFT as a token to track marketing and create assets that are useful in marketing, not just products, but really augmented reality, because virtual, it come and go, and Apple can't solve it like they did with MP3s and with iPhones.
Right.
But they can make it more amazing. I mean, their product, I've tested a few different AR, Vision Pro headset experiences, and they're stunning. Arguably sometimes better than real world. It's that good, but it's a cost prohibitive. So AR, everybody has a phone, and everybody benefits from the ability to bring virtual into your real world and vice versa. So I think we're going to see more of that in the next 2 years. Kind of a resurgence after, we're done with the what you might call it, just the idea of post-election, let's get back to work. So most of my agency friends and business friends that had a rough year or a slow year, especially a terrible start and maybe mostly strong finishes, where 20% had a good year, 80% had a bumpy or bad year. 100% are, 95 to 100% are optimistic about 2025, even with the uncertainty of what a new administration is going to do. Whether if you're Wall Street, you're stoked. If you're a West Coast liberal, you have some concerns, but the market still continues to be moving so far. So I think there will be more investment in marketing, and I think it'll benefit everybody in that space. And I hope my entrepreneur friends as well and business owners are not just investing in marketing, but also in their people.
I couldn't agree with you more. Well, one of the other things that you've touched on is personalization, right? The biggest thing I see coming out of data, AI, automation, right, that's coming. And again, I don't want to delve too deep, but trying to get marketing closer to what I've heard the term segment of one, but it's really, how do I talk to Kent? How do I talk to Brent or anybody else on a personal level, right? And I think that is one of the, like you said, there's good and bad with AI and automation. I think that would be the benefit, is how do we talk to, 5 different people, 5 different ways, and more relevant to what they're doing. What are your thoughts in and around that?
Well, I saw a presentation at Digital Summit here in Portland last week from Indeed, and what they were doing with AI to create a much better custom experience for the job seeker and the corporations that are hiring, with targeting like, these people meet your needs. So you'd see something in your profile in your inbox saying, instead of just there are these jobs open, as these nursing jobs within 100 miles of your and I'm not even using their best examples, but are the best use of XYZ strengths that you have, like going granular so much more than the traditional personalization we've seen historically. So it gives everybody that feeling of just a deeper sense of understanding and really care, I guess, is how it comes out, a deeper trust. So I think there's a lot there, and I am not an expert on the personalization aspects of AI. More of a broader, like, what can it do in general? But I think it's still, we are at the worst you'll see AI, right? Right now. And so it's going to get crazy. And it's also, I think, going to get what I said about every new technology that comes out in AI is far from new, but is we know it works when we stop talking about it nonstop. It just
Yeah.
works. It just is. So that's how it was with blogging and video and mobile and podcasting and everything before that. When it's just like, oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
accepted. That's where I think we'll be, but it's going to be 2 to 5 years before we stop talking about it because
Yeah.
there's still so like early stage adoption and such a general lack of understanding. And, you know, for instance, I'm guessing you've played around with Notebook LM, but, you know, it does podcasting better than you and I can.
Right.
And, you know, just taking any asset or document, it's insane. But how my son uses it as a sophomore in college is he takes the really long, dry articles, uploads it into a notebook, and then he listens to a 20-minute podcast while he's doing whatever, playing soccer, working out. And it's just easier for our brains to understand this, the dialogue between these two really easy to listen to, seemingly really smart people are just taking the highlights of the article and hammering home the important points in an easy to understand way. So I think AI can really help with learning and make what we do, take it from good to great.
Yeah, you know what's so great about it? You were already that was I was going to kind of lead there, and you jumped. I mean, it was perfect timing, right? I'm like, how does it accelerate learning, right? Because I feel like where AI helps you cliff note things, right? If
Yes.
everyone remembers the old cliff notes,
Oh yeah.
but it does it in such an elegant way, and it can personalize it, and it can have a tone, right, that you're comfortable with, right? And you can, like you said, you can change those tones. That's the neat part of it. But there's, like you're exactly right, Ken. Until we stop talking about it, it's not fully just part of mainstream.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, and again, to the learning, I think that extends to video, you know, text to video, like help. I mean, we're a ways away from this, but literally typing in your concern or what you want to learn. And then there's the Google AI powered like learn, I forget what it's called, but you can learn a topic.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's probably where the generative search is going to go, but it's I sent it to my kids. I can't find it here. To like, you can learn anything, and it just sets it up in an easily digestible way. And God, I wish I had that when I was in high school and college. I took calculus 3 times. Like I just could not get my arms around it, and it took a lot of effort for me to finally. I had to get an A in it just to get into business school back in the day. And I think that AI could have really helped me learn in a way that's better for me. Right. And so
I think it's going to accelerate. Yeah. The young generation, that's going to accelerate their learning because they're going to be able to learn in ways in which they can consume. Right.
100%.
Yeah. It'll be tailored to them. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. So any other like insights, from the industry standpoint? Because one of the things I was thinking, like, again, I could probably talk to you for hours and on the digital space, but I was just thinking about, right, when you think about for the first time, in the last 2 months or the last 2 quarters, the Google's market share of search is coming down only because of ChatGPT and AI search, right, is growing. I was thinking though, what's the impact in your mind, right? You think about it, we grew up in keyword based everything, right? Google's been SEO is all about keywords, and everything is about ranking your keywords. And now that everything's going to be so interactive, how do you see that kind of changing the digital landscape that way, right? Because I feel like SEM and SEO is going to change.
So yeah, we've got ChatGPT rolling out their AI search to everybody. We've got Pinterest and other platforms building TikTok AI powered search into their platforms. It's kind of a short circuit to trying to compete directly with Google. But Google is now competing with everybody. Amazon, AI, GPT, etc. So I think it's forcing Google to stand on its toes. I still use Google over almost anything else. And I know we've got, everybody has, Gemini, Copilot, et cetera. And it's remarkable. But the way I would look at this is combining AI with marketing is there's going to be 2 camps. And I'm in the PR side of the camp, which is if I can get my content, and I want to get my content in as many eyes or brains as possible. And so that means conversely, allowing GPT to see, or any AI engine to find my stuff. And then I
Right.
realize, I believe over time, they're already doing better and better job of citing sources, kind of like Wikipedia. These results, you'll say from Kent Lewis or from, wherever. And
Right.
so I'm going to get out there, but I have a friend that's a developer that will not release any of his content out in the public, only through newsletters directed to his clients. He doesn't want any of his stuff out there. I'm like, well, that's one way to do it. But he's a developer, not a marketer. And
Right.
he feels that it gives him a competitive edge to keep his message down to a very few people. And that's one way to do it. But the way I look at it is I've benefited from first mover advantage, not just in getting into digital and then launching an agency that was pure digital relatively early on in 2000. And then every year at Anvil for 20 years, I would say it's the year of mobile, it's the year of video, it's the year of whatever, and then learn that. It was 4 years ago, it was NFTs, and then it was
Right.
AR, and then or AR and VR, and then it was, this last year for me was thought leadership. When people are like, why are you talking about this? Because it's a big SEO benefit, and it's still the best way to get new customers and within a targeted community. It doesn't scale very well in terms of speaking or pitching
Yeah.
the media. You can hit certain subsets, but I proved that it worked, and others are like, yeah, that's a great idea. I try to zig when others zag. I am not going to tell people about the latest SEO best practices because I'm no longer in that day to day.
Right.
I'm up here looking at the meta trends. So back to your point of like what's coming, I think SEO will have an AI component that it's going to start as a separate, arguably, let's technically speaking, like a separate service offering. But
Right.
within a year or two, it's like all SEO has AI in it. Like you won't even have to say it. You won't even have to, it's just implied.
Right.
So so I think that's a big change. And then on the ad side of, pay per click and meta ads and so forth is AI will be increasingly built into the platforms and the third-party MarTech platforms as well. AI to do this, that, and the other. I have a partner, Data Speaks, that does a lot of connecting the dots on attribution in analytics using AI. You're going to see a lot more of that. But because attribution is a pain in the ass, right? And
It's one of the hardest things there is, right?
Right. So, again, that's another argument for thought leadership. Create your own content on your own channels, and then you've got the attribution right there, and a reason for people to come visit because it's unique content.
Yeah.
But again, yes, I think that the third-party cookies deprecation is the world's slowest exit. But
it is the world's slowest exit. That's a good way to say it.
Right. Plenty of time for everybody to adjust. Experts, and I don't pretend to be one, but there are saying that, hey, listen, we needed this to like wake ourselves up and get back to the fundamentals. Like one of my clients, one of my partners in the agency world does a ton of out of home and just reverse engineering the ROI on that, or radio, print.
Yeah.
As attribution improves, these other channels are getting a little bit of a resurgence or comeuppance of like, we
direct
do make
mail,
a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kent, any other things that you're top of mind that we haven't really covered?
No, it's pretty funny. I was looking at a top 2025 marketing trends, and it's everything we've talked about. I will say, just to reiterate, video will continue to be the top feeder, and AI will make it more powerful. And the evolution of the ability to create and edit quickly will create some of the best video out there. And the one they included that I've said it's the year of voice search since 2007. So it's still making the list. And the reason is, everybody has voice activated everything, but I have an Alexa, a Google, it didn't hear me. All those speakers all over the house, right? And our products have this smart technologies. So voice search optimization, which I wrote about years ago, is still going to be a thing. I wouldn't have even included it in my predictions because I did it too many years in a row, way ahead of its time. Yeah. So, but still worth.
And that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. You definitely are on the forefront of thought leadership in this space. So, Kent, thank you so much. What I'd really like to do is how would people I know you're on your next journey, right?
Yes.
So let's give us, a couple minutes on that of what's next for you and how people might want to get in touch with you if they can.
Yeah. So for stars, you can, I'm going to transition off of Twitter X in January after 15 years. Don't love the platform and where it's going. And I am on Blue Sky, just, why not? I'm on every social platform, but the very best place to find me is at kentjlewis.com. It's literally number one in Google for Kent Lewis, I'm pretty sure. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm literally /Kent Lewis. Like, that's how I roll. I get in early on every social platform, and I do SEO or no SEO. So I tend to rank pretty well. So if you type in Kent Lewis, you should find me 8 of the top 10. If you can't, Kent Lewis Portland, and I'm 9 of the top 10. There's another much more successful Kent Lewis here in Portland that's a restaurateur and a pilot and a general black belt and a badass. I just know SEO better than him. But anyway, I think that's the best place. But so LinkedIn and just on my personal website.
Awesome. Well, I got to tell you, I can't thank you enough. This has been a phenomenal interview with you, and I'm looking forward to watching what's next with you. And we hope to have you back. I would love to come back. This has always been a joy to speak with you, and I look forward to next time. And thanks for having me. Awesome. Thank you so much.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.